Good. Call meeting order, roll call.
Okay, Mayor Westgard.
Yes.
Muller.
Yes.
Stankin.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Voltman.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Okay, we have a fellows here for a little public forum. Who would like to speak?
You go first, Jake, or little spiel?
Alright, so myself, Chad, and Jason are here on behalf of the golf course, Spring Lake Golf and Country Club. We're hoping that maybe we could be put in the budget for next year. Vicki can attest to the kind of the year-to-year struggle that we have with breakdowns and stuff like that. So we're just hoping that we could maybe get some funds from the city. We're going to approach Odebolt and Wall Lake and hopefully get the same thing. So I think it's advantageous for both us and the city to have a golf course somewhat local. So you know, you never know what's going to happen out there. So we've had some issues here the last couple of years with tractors and irrigation systems, one that's going to come up here in the future. So yeah, we're just kind of hoping maybe we can get some monetary support out there.
We're also a nonprofit. I mean, not
Right.
because we are a nonprofit, but we are a nonprofit not because we choose to be also. But all three towns advertise saying they have a golf course, so they're saying they own. So each town takes a responsibility saying they have a golf course as an advertisement. So we think they should step up, maybe potentially, and help with them potentially. And if you're going to claim you have one,
Do you have a dollar amount that you'd like the council to think about?
Well, we're tossing around. We thought we'd start at 10,000. You know, hopefully it isn't an every year thing for us, but I just know where we sit with what we owe on tractors currently, and then our irrigation system has already started to let go on us. We lost a $10,000 pump last year. So, you know, like I said, we're going to approach Odebolt and Wall Lake hopefully and try and get participation from everyone. So I guess we wouldn't expect 10,000, but I think that would be, that would help us out an awful lot.
That's, how many members do you have from a breakdown from each community?
Okay, well,
Lakeview's the largest.
right.
I think we have 75 members from Lakeview,
And the memberships vary from, you know,
and we are.
there's different types of memberships.
We're in the city of Lakeview Electricity also.
Correct. And
That's the only organization we pay money to.
So.
And how about like Wall Lake and?
Yeah, I don't know.
We've
for
talked
sure.
to Wall Lake. Wall Lake is in favor of doing it, but they
Well, I mean,
want.
how many?
Membership
Oh,
breakdown,
Wall Lake
I don't know
probably.
what
Wall
that-
Lake, I
I'm
believe
just
is.
curious.
Wall Lake, I believe, is 35, and I believe Odebolt is a little bit bigger than that. They might be like 42. Lakeview's by far the largest of the three.
Sure.
And you've already talked to them?
We have not yet.
We talked to
Not
them. We talked to them in
formally.
the past, and they were all in favor in the past, but they wanted the other two communities to step up also. They didn't want to be the only one doing it, and I said that makes sense. You know, if all three are, it needs to be a combined effort. So we're trying to get all the ducks in a row and get all three
Right,
talked
so
to.
this is the first time that we've talked since
Recently.
I've been on the board, which is 4 years now.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been real recent, but
So could you get a hard dollar figure on what your plans are? Like if you said you got a $10,000 pump, what about, the tractor,
well, so
New,
I mean,
new
I would
tractor's
think
45,000.
we would put the money into a general fund, you know, and then use it as we need it. But I mean, we have 2 notes out on tractors right now that we pay right around 10,000 a year for. Now we have, I think, 1 year left on one of those tractors and 2 years left on another one. But it would be a situation where instead of using those tractors till they're worth nothing, turn right around and try and, trade those off while they're worth something. But it's just with our memberships out there, they've gone over the years, they've gone, backwards. And when you raise your membership fees, you tend to lose more members. So we try and not do that. But price for what we pay employees goes up every year too. So it's tough out there. So
if you would want some, we have a meeting next Monday. If you would
We
want
do.
something that we would spend the money on specifically,
right, a
we
target
could come
of
up with
something.
something next Monday real easily.
That would be a good idea to me.
Well, you know, it'll be figured into next year's budget, which is what we're starting to
Yes.
work
Right.
on.
That's right.
So,
We're looking to the future too, we're just trying to keep ourselves relevant for the future too, I mean, we're getting by, that's what we're doing, we're getting by.
Right.
We gotta, if we wanna stay relevant for the future, we gotta find a way to stay relevant and keep things rolling.
I'd
And
say the biggest ticket item's gonna be an irrigation system it's already 50 years old, and like I said, we got a new pump last year, but, you're talking lines, heads.
so could you like give us kind of a financial statement? Is there anything you could do on
I
that
think Sandy-
line?
Sandy
you wanna see our,
can
you
help
wanna
with
see our financials?
Well, I'm just saying if
But
we
you
had
can-
something to support the
Mhm.
if we make a donation, not,
Yeah, that's no
is that what
problem.
you're thinking?
Yes.
I mean, you know, just something to
Mhm.
support it.
that. Yeah, we could,
Doesn't have to be your whole thing, just a summary thing or something.
okay, summary of kind of what we owe, I mean, or what,
Well, you know what, like maybe what the.
You wanna see the last 3 years when we were at the end of the year? I'll show you
Well,
that.
like maybe what your annual,
If anything, we show at the end of the meeting.
greens are, you
Yeah.
know, like what your,
Mhm.
what am I trying to say, the course fees are, you know.
P&Ls for the end of the year.
yeah, we can- Sandy can
No
definitely,
problem.
she could come up with that for you for sure.
Might be nice.
Because it takes a while to go through the budget process.
Mhm.
We like to go to a lot of meetings in January.
Yeah, we can do that, so.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Turn that boy on.
Yeah.
Anyone else for public forum? Mike? Okay, consent agenda, any additions or corrections?
No.
Motion to approve. Second,
Second?
roll call.
Boltman.
Yeah.
Smoller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Reese.
Okay, resolution 2001, appointing city officers. Motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
roll call.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Boltman. Yes. Reese.
Yes.
Moller.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2002 is appointing the city attorney. Second,
Second.
roll call.
Boltman.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Moller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Okay, 2003 is appointing our fire chief.
So move.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Good.
Moller.
Yes.
Stanky.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Boltman.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
And 2004 is approving the members of the fire department.
So move.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Moller.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Boltman. Tom.
Yes.
Stanky.
Yes.
Okay, 2005 is naming the official depositories. Is that motion?
So move.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Moller.
Yes.
Stanky.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Boltman.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2006 is our listing gross salaries. Everyone,
Yes.
second,
Second?
roll call.
Boltman.
Yes.
Moller.
Yes.
Stanky.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Okay, we'll have ordinance 504, that's our second reading of the sanitary sewer rates. Have we had any input from the public?
No, I really haven't heard anything.
They all know it's bad news.
Yeah.
We have that motion on 504.
So move.
Roll call.
Moller.
Yes.
Boltman.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Stanky.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
And Bob Reef will be here later.
I make a motion to waive the third.
Yeah, we sure can. We got enough time to do it at the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
We laid out enough time for that.
Okay, we're gonna bypass Bob and go to Bill and Emily Bogue.
Yeah. So, yeah, Bill and Emily Bogue are basically finished with their Dorothy Jane Bakery project. And stopped in there today. They had stopped down to see me last week, said that they had passed their sanitary inspection and everything was good to go, that they could go ahead and open. They would have intended to open this week, and as of today, they were talking about opening around January 14th, which would be next Tuesday. They had one additional problem with a piece of equipment. but they have fulfilled the obligations from their development agreement. We have an $8,000 incentive payment to that, which I would recommend the city would fulfill.
I'll make the motion to
I'll
do
second.
that.
Roll call.
Muller,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Boltman,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Stankin.
Yes.
I do have a question on that. About where we would take that $8,000 from, whether we would utilize TIF funds for that, or we have this economic development fund where we put the $25,000 aside each year. We want to do that for 4 years.
You
I,
can use that from TIF, right?
You
I
can,
would-
yeah.
I would like to use it out of the economic
I would
development.
too.
And that's what we put it there for.
Right.
Which, the economic development fund is actually hotel motel dollars to start with, is where they came from.
That'd be the first, thing out there that would bring online, like I said, that would,
Yeah.
Right.
it shows the community that we are pressing forward and doing this, so that's, to me, that makes sense.
So you need a motion for that?
Yes, and the motion ought to say where we want to take the money from.
I'll make the motion to take it out of the economic development fund.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Tom,
Yes.
Moller,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Boltman.
Yep.
Stankin.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna do our electric replacement project. Bill, you're happy with everything?
Yeah, exactly what I reported at the last meeting like that.
Nothing's changed.
No,
So yeah, nothing's changed as far as the proposed project. You see what the estimated cost was, it's about at 115. And this is, again, just the boring contractor. We have them install the conduit and pull the cable, redo all of the connections. And what we would ask for is authorize the bid letting. Bid letting is proposed here for Thursday, February 13th, and what we'll do then is send out these packets to past bidders and other interested bidders.
I'll make the motion to move forward with the bid letting.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
We have Dave already. Mulder,
Okay.
Yes.
Wolfman,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Stankin,
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna talk about our financial audit.
Yeah.
Everybody got the book?
Yep. So this is a yearly event?
No.
No?
Okay.
This was the big one.
This was a financial audit.
This is the big one.
So we had them audit all of the finances. What we get every year is that compliance exam.
Okay.
So they look at some of the financial stuff, but it's not an audit. They're looking at more processes on the other years. You know, so this is an audit, but it's done through tests. You know, it does not audit every transaction. It audits tests. So, of course, you can look through all of the numbers in there and see where we're at, but I really want to focus on a couple things at the end, and it starts on page 51.
Can you address page 32?
Okay. Anything in particular?
Well, I guess just the fact that they're saying what we exceeded it, that our expenses exceeded it, what we brought into the fund, is that what they're saying?
We did exceed the budget in one area, and it was in Public Works.
All right.
It had us expending around $103,000 from road use tax, and we had budgeted $100,000. What we do is actually just then we transfer the remaining money from road use tax into our street construction fund. So we transferred $3,000 less than we had anticipated to budget. We spent that instead. It's just allocated in the state budget
So then,
process. It looks different.
so then did you transfer again? Did we transfer again? Did we transfer again? No.
We transferred the money from road use tax to the street construction fund. It was just $3,000 less than what we had anticipated. It is just a budget overage, and that's why it's acknowledged in the audit.
Right.
I'm on page 51. Where they're going through this is 3 points on the summary of the independent auditor's results. So we did receive an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So there was no changes then to the financial statement. Did note again a material weakness in interior and internal control, and we get that every year. We get some acknowledgement on internal control. We struggle with that because there is only 2 of us in the office. We try to have incorporated John more into the review process, but still doesn't meet the requirements for
What are the requirements?
Yeah, so it's
having many more different hands be able to do in different processes.
Cross-check,
So, you know, it is cross checks,
yeah.
and it's not having everybody do, say, all portions of a workflow.
Mhm.
It can really affect the way that we accomplish our work around here if we had to try to meet.
So they're more talking
requirements.
about the same 2 people signing off on it all the time, is that their?
Yeah, you know, that me and Kay are the only 2 people in office, yeah. So that's what they're talking about, so. And you'll see an acknowledgement there about incorporating more people, and they specifically talk about the mayor and council. So we've done stuff with the mayor, and then we can have that discussion about what you'd like to do as far as any review from the council.
Would that satisfy their views if we had that there, or council, some sort of council oversight?
No.
No.
Are they doing it?
We can't meet their segregation of duty requirement.
We get dinged with this all the time, every year, the same
Yeah,
thing.
that is-
There's towns that only have 1 person, and they're in charge of everything.
Yep.
At least we have 2.
And the mayor looking over their shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go through that all the time.
So we do, and that's the first internal control deficiency there on page 52. It's talking about segregation of duties, about how we can involve more people, see that the recommendation then, and then the response. So this is our response there, about us considering this in the review procedures in order to make changes to improve internal control. And specifically, the city council and mayor would start reviewing bank statements and reconciliations. That's already being done, has been done for at least a couple of years. Okay? Initially as proof of review, which the mayor does. So it says we plan to implement that. We have implemented that as a couple of years ago. Next one talks about financial reporting, and they did look at the one called condition, and this they noted that interest receipts were omitted from revenue reports, and what that is accounting for the interest off of a CD. It didn't account for the interest off of the CD right when it was accrued. So when we balance the reports every month, they still balance, of course, because that CD is outside the nature of the financial report. But that was put in then. The interest receipt was recorded and everything's fine. Disbursements. That criteria there, we look at the last sentence of that criteria. Vouchers with erroneous amounts should be canceled and reissued rather than crossing out amounts and writing new amounts on the voucher. So what happens, whenever we get an invoice, we always call it a jacket that goes along with it, a separate sheet of paper, and we fill that out with the name of the vendor, the account number, how much it is. Okay, and so it's and then you put the check number on it when it's all done. It's a way to orderly file all of the bills. There are some times when we took that jacket that had a predetermined amount on it, and it's paying for debt service, it's paying ourselves for debt service. Crossed out that that amount and wrote in a different amount because we were paying ourselves a different amount to pay off some debt service that month. It changes from year to year, and instead of putting out a new jacket, Kay had crossed off the amount and put that in there. Now, that was one of them that was selected for testing then. So, anyway, we're paying ourselves properly, but it was noted then in the auditor report. Invoices are not always canceled. The other thing that our auditor requires is that you cancel every invoice then to avoid repaying. And Kay she was not very happy about that because she's really, really good about this. And whether anything had slipped through there, or we do, like on our debt service payments, it's just a jacket, there's nothing to cancel. So, again, we do want to make sure that we're canceling every one of those then. The recommendation then on top of page 54 will say that the list of payables presented to the city council for approval should be initialed by the council, and we do that. And then as we write those checks, then the amounts are compared then to the approval list from the council. Payroll and payroll reporting. This does note that the city incurred that penalty for failure to make proper tax payments, and this was in the fourth quarter of 18. In that payment, 326, and that was acknowledged as a penalty was paid. It's one of those instances where we filed that EFTPS, and payment is due to the federal government on Friday, and I filed it on Friday. Of course, they don't receive it till Monday, and anyway, I asked them for forgiveness on that, and did not get forgiveness. The other acknowledgement there deals with the NIPERS withholding. That deals with Eric. That we don't withhold IPERS from Eric, for Eric Atkinson. Of course, he's already retired. So every year he's a new seasonal employee. But as soon as you've made more than $600 for 2 quarters, you got to start collecting in the 3rd quarter. So he'll work about a month and a half then in the 3rd quarter. So in this case, I remitted the city's portion of IPERS, and it did not remit the portion or withhold the portion from Eric's. Page 55, you see some other findings, and a lot of these actually, they're just a checklist of things that they go through, but official depositories was fine. That's the next one, is certified budget. That's the deal about the exceedance in the public works. Questionable disbursements, none found. Travel expenses, none found for city officials or spouses of city officials. Business transaction, you see that they do record, they ask for business transactions with any elected officials or staff, and in this case we had a business transaction with the mayor about the reimbursement for materials that were used for donated toy boxes. Bond coverage is in, everything's in order there, and council minutes, no transactions were found, but they did make that note. In the spirit of transparency, we recommend that minutes include all acquisitions and the amount to be remitted for that acquisition. Well, and the trade-ins. So, well, what that is we had traded in our Toro lawnmower, and the minutes did not show the value of what the trade-in was. It just showed the difference in cost. So that was their acknowledgement there about joint trade-in value and the purchase. Financial condition, you see that the balance of the city funds at June 30 were in excess of the disbursements for local option sales tax, TIF, special assessment, and planning capital funds. So what they're saying there is our balance in those funds is more than 1 year's worth of what the budget was for that year. Okay, now that's often the case then because we're saving money for other specific projects in the future. So that was what our acknowledgement was there. You see the note there on TIF. They found nothing wrong with the TIF and all the reportings and report. The last one is all in place.
Anybody have any questions? We need a motion to approve that.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Moller,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
We're gonna review the drafts on our improvements.
Yeah, let's take a look at our capital improvement plan. So we had our departmental needs assessment that was presented at the previous council meeting. And from that needs assessment, prepared this draft of a capital improvement plan. So the plan is 5 years long, but we generally focus most on year one of the plan with the idea that if the items are included in year one of the plan, they're incorporated into the budget. So now's the time when we want to be adding anything in there, subtracting anything that you don't feel is appropriate. And because when we're done with this version of our capital improvements plan, again, year one would go into the budget then for next year. So I do want to,
So let me understand this, I forgot from last year. So if we don't want anything on this list in this year's budget, this budget coming up in July, we need to take it out now?
we should talk about that now. Yep, you bet.
Well, I don't think we need that spike strip.
Sure.
So we gotta go through this whole thing tonight?
I just want to go mainly through, that thing that you're looking at?
Oh, that's not the right thing?
No,
Oh, okay, gotcha,
page 27 of the packet.
gotcha,
That other thing
Yep.
is for our planning session next week.
gotcha.
For homework.
You wanna take that spike strip out?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there, I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, but I just don't think we need one. Does anybody else think we need it?
What's it really for?
Well,
I see.
Slow down
High-speed
high speed
chases.
chases.
Fill the spike trips
I
out.
think the sheriff's department's got
Yeah.
enough.
Let's take her out.
Do want to talk through most of these things just from the top. Our technology upgrade, we always keep some funds available, it comes from sales tax for hardware and software. So, and that really is across any of the departments, they utilize that money. Annual financial exam, so we would propose just a financial exam next year, not an audit. And the cost there, $4,500 or so. See the way, as you flip back to year 4, you'd see that it says full financial audit again.
So let me ask you something, I see you have the responses all in here. Are you actually implementing any of these? Are you changing anything based on this audit recommendation?
We will, you know, as far as some policy things about assuring, like for the payroll taxes, you know, we gotta make sure that those are paid in a timely manner. The other thing is to incorporate additional folks, and really it's working with John is what it's been so far on review.
I would think payroll taxes would be something you do on a quarterly basis.
No, we do it
Oh, no, you
Do
do
it
it.
here.
You do it more often than that.
every payroll.
And you were just late one.
Yeah.
Kay said some of the stuff's in there, we already do it anyway. She missed it. One of those was,
Kay got a little worked up about all
Yeah.
this stuff. There's a lot of it, yeah, we do, you know.
has something
On
to
the
do with
acknowledgements.
Lon, and hell, he's been gone 2 years, the lady just went from 1 year to the next, didn't even ask, so.
Okay.
So yeah, this shows a financial exam. Does show $15,000 in there to update our comprehensive plan. So it's been now 10 years since we had our comprehensive plan done. So it's proposed that we would hire a firm to assist us with that. Now, Region 12, Council of Governments can help us with that, and
What all does that plan entail?
it is a comprehensive look for everything from demographics through infrastructure to through housing, and it is a very,
Time-consuming event.
yeah, it truly is. So that's another note, is that as we're looking at a planning and zoning commission, that Steve Shodden had resigned from the planning and zoning commission, we're looking to fill that position then. And I put that in the newsletter about filling that. And they always want to know what the job duties are and whatnot. Of course, it's looking at zoning regulations, but I also put in there about this comprehensive plan. So that'll be one of the major things.
Didn't V and K do it last time?
V&K did last time.
Because they sent the first guy up with really low rates, and he finally got Bob. It was terrible.
It was a lot more than $15,000 last time, so, you know, we can have this discussion, but I would kind of lean towards using Region 12, they'll do a nice job. Funding that economic development fund again, from hotel motel, $25,000. Getting a large shredder for the office, be about $500 there. Underground replacement, that's that project that we had just authorized to take the bid for. Okay, electric capital fund, that for you'll see this in electric, water, and sewer. We always take these funds and put it into a capital fund so that we always have funds available for the purchase of vehicles and equipment. Fire department, station repairs, again about siding then next year, remembering this is next year's budget, and they want to do the roof in right away at this spring.
Did you find out about liability?
Yeah, yeah, that they are able to do that. We need to have them sign a different type of, it's an acknowledgement that they're doing different type of work other than traditional volunteer fire work, but it would be covered under a volunteer policy.
Okay.
And it would also be covered under workman's comp if they got hurt, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So-
that's the one.
Why are we not putting any money aside for that bus on an annual basis?
We can, but I guess I put there $75,000 in year 2. But,
Okay.
I mean, you sure can. But what we do is budget so many dollars for the fire department, and any money that's left over from their budget at the end of the year goes into their capital fund. So they do generate some money in their capital fund that way.
Okay. All right.
Replacing 2 air packs and spare bottles then every year, pagers every year. Okay, the building addition for the library would be in there. You see, with the cost being split over a couple of years, we would anticipate there'd be some money expended this spring, I think, on that. So I would anticipate we'd budget around $200,000 for that. General capital fund, again, is putting more money in the capital fund for general uses, and that this one comes from the parks, mainly for mowers. The timing of that fish barrier will be that it comes out of next year's budget through SRF sponsored project funds.
We don't have any update on that.
We do. I have a hard deadline about how they will proceed with the bid letting. So as far as the last bit of plan review is going on right now, and then the DNR has the dates for when the plans they have to be approved by their state commission. So that's their hard date, is to get that done. As soon as, they take it out to bid, and then the contract gets approved by that. So they do have all of their dates laid out so that it is done in a timely manner.
So
So
we'll
it'll
meet
start
the
this-
deadline?
Yes, yep.
So
Construction,
they'll
construction, I think they're gonna give them through the calendar year,
Oh,
at least. Well, it may dribble into next year.
yeah.
The Speaker Park sidewalk. See that is in there about that Sac County Endowment Grant, and $25,000 committed from the general fund. We may look at paring that back a little bit and shortening up the sidewalk maybe a little bit to probably incorporates the Vets Memorial sidewalk there instead of maybe going clear to the corner. So there's some options that we would look at on that can save several $1,000s.
You certainly don't, you already got a sidewalk going that way, and then you go through the memorial, you got one there, you sure don't want one in between.
Yeah, it would be more from like the memorial to
On the
the
road
arch
side.
by the curb, yeah. Let's see. Toro mower trade-in that we would wanna, trade in would estimate $7,000. We're looking at other vendors for that now too, and see how that might impact that. Aquatic herbicide for the lake.
I didn't think it cost that much.
It doesn't, you know, the aquatic herbicide is gonna be about 21,000 something. I put the total cost in there for, harvester operations too, but I think we'll change that, it'll be 22,000. Okay, this does show the campground, concrete pads, and utilities project. I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
I thought it was 150, now it's up to 190.
That was our last bid, was 190.
And
How
do
many
we set aside
pads
money
is
for that?
No, it would come from general fund and from Lost,
How
and
many,
we really don't have any grant money for that anymore either.
they figured how many pads that would be?
26.
Oh, yeah.
It just redoes the furthest east area.
So that makes them for the big campers, then they'll be able to accommodate the big ones.
Yeah.
But it also takes some away too, right? If we put big ones in, then take some small.
Yeah, there's less sites in there then because the sites are bigger.
But they pay more.
They do pay a little bit more, and they'll be full, you know, they'll be full.
They rent them
regularly.
first. They
Yeah.
decide.
You know, that's something we could leave in there, and then once we go through the budget, you know,
Yep, and we'll,
cut that
Well,
in
that's the
half,
one
and
last
then-
year we were supposed to get a grant on, and then we didn't get the grant because the engineer made a mistake. Do you remember that, the engineer?
we were gonna use sponsored project money on that, and it wasn't an eligible project, so.
But the campground had the biggest year it's ever had this year.
Yes, you bet. Highest
I
bidder.
know Ruth thinks they really need these.
Yep.
So does this do sewage drop, will this have anything to do with that?
Yep, this installs sewer to the area, okay, and it's an unsewered area right now.
That's
So-
included in the 190?
Yep, yep.
And then that way would some of those areas be able to rent these docks we're talking about, or not?
Yeah.
It's
They
a
sure
first
can.
come,
Now
first
what?
served thing, but I mean, we'd be able to get some money back if we start renting some docks down there.
Yeah, I wanna have that discussion here too. So on the dock deal, so I called Ryan to ask about whether this is feasible or not. He's checking with the higher ups, I don't have the answer on that. But then I also talked with Jimmy Garles about this, about the feasibility of that, especially in that area. Just a real shallow area there, so the dock ends up being really long. And the one of reference out there then is Dale Beckman's dock is 17 sections long to get out to where the water's deep enough that his boat can go in there. And dock section costs about $900. You know, we'd be into, you know, a $25,000 setup, I'm sure, for probably 4 slip spaces, and we wouldn't provide the slip, you just rent the space out.
I see.
And now I've asked Ryan though about, DNR Ryan about this too, because we would have these available spaces, does that just make them public spaces, or can you reserve them such that only people from the campground could reserve the site? This is just some issues that are still up in the air. The other issue that I'd really ask you to consider is whether you truly want to do this or not. And just a long-standing policy about not having docks in Town Bay.
That'd be simpler.
It's the campers that are here all summer the ones that have asked for it. So. But we don't even know if they'll let us do it.
But I don't know if they'll let us do it, and the feasibility of that. I mean, it can be done, it's just a question of how much it would end up costing, you know?
Take a long time to get your return back on
Yeah,
that.
if it's gonna cost more than we're gonna take in, then
Well, I asked Jimmy, what's he get for a slip space? No slip, just a space, and it's $800. So,
But then everyone of them's got to have a lift too now.
we would not provide the lift,
Oh,
you know, we'd just say that we'd rent them a space on the dock and that they'd have to provide the lift.
so then they could, it's kind of a permanent thing to rent then.
well, for that year.
This this summer.
You know, it is
Well,
year to year.
Yeah,
And if we run off the same regulations like the DNR does
yeah.
like the marina area, okay? You get the spot for 5 years. You gotta pay the fee every year, but it's a 5-year permit.
That ain't cheap. I know we looked into that years ago, and after we sold our cabin, and that, at that time, that's been, oh, 12, 15, they wanted $1,000 way back then.
Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
Huh.
Just to rent a spot. So I don't know what it is now, I have no idea.
Just as we think about this campground project again also, so we have plans prepared for that. They were prepared by Murray Engineering. Okay, but we do have plans prepared for that, we would just bid it locally.
When would you think the bid would go out for something like this?
After we would, after the council would agree that it would be a budgeted item for next year and that we could go ahead and look at that. Get the project out in February, probably let it in March.
Because they wouldn't do it till fall anyway.
And we would have a start date of after,
Labor Day?
yeah, actually after Halloween, because those,
Mm.
because we didn't block off any of those dates, those spots are rented then for
Okay.
Halloween day, so. Next item there, just lumber for some picnic tables that the staff would repair in-house. Purchase a golf cart, and this would just be a used golf cart. Again, just looking to upgrade what we have down there. That would replace the one that Ruth has. Rock for mini golf course is replacing all of that mulch down there with rock. Historic kiosk for the historic assets. Again, we were funded half that project and with grant again this year. Okay, police would not purchase a vehicle this coming budget year. We would just be funding the capital fund. And then also does propose to purchase one taser. Every officer would have their own taser. Sanitary sewer, again, putting funds into the Public Works Capital Fund. Purchase a sewer camera. And then upgrading one lift station, and the one to be upgraded this year would be up County Road there by Dina Oaks. Street, we just would put in that 2020 street project and also fixing that intake there at Vine Street by Blackhawk Fitness. This does propose that we would start to set some money aside for a sweeper. It says 15,000, that's just 5,000 each from water, sewer, and from sales tax. Not much money towards what a sweeper would be, but you know, Bill is not looking at doing anything here real quick.
What is included in that 2020 street project? Vine Street intake, but what else is in there? Is that all the West Street and the ones you were gonna seal coat?
What I had highlighted at the last meeting,
Okay, that's all included in that line? Okay.
right? We haven't got any prices back yet either.
Okay.
Still waiting on that. The contractor has
That
been
is the
here and
seal
looked at
coat.
everything.
That's what you're talking about, seal coat.
Right, and also 2-inch overlays,
Oh, yeah.
Horseshoe Drive, Blossom,
Was West Street gonna get the overlay?
yeah.
Okay.
We're basically trying to preserve what we got.
I know. But we hope it'll help West Street, right?
Oh, it will, you know. It helped out, like Lakewood Drive turned out beautiful.
Good,
Really, that's a good street.
Keeps the water off there.
Look at that.
okay, good.
Dump truck, at the end of this current fiscal year, we would have that 124 in a set-aside account. So we would look at a potential purchase of a new dump truck or a really good used one. You know, really try to upgrade our dump truck here next year.
Okay, so I thought, and maybe that's what you just said, but I thought this year fiscal year we're in was the last payment we needed to be able to afford a dump truck.
True.
We need
Yeah.
one more year,
No, this would expend the money then next year.
so you're gonna put 124,000 in after we
There's
will
60.
already purchase one?
There's 60 in there right today.
Okay.
During the remainder of this budget year, we'll propose another 64. Another 64 goes into that, okay? So there'll be $124,000 there. It's just
And now you're
authorizing the
gonna put in
expense.
another
Oh,
124.
no. No, that's as much as we would have.
I thought you said by the end of this fiscal year, we would have 124 in there.
We would,
But you're
Is
just
it,
gonna,
aren't we
This is just
looking at next year?
For purchasing it,
right,
yeah.
it's gotta be in the budget so we can
So,
purchase
yeah,
it.
this,
Oh,
yeah, this would actually then spend the money.
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Water to replace nitrate media, so that was at 50,000. The initial 25,000 that went into that fund this year actually came from lost. So, we'd look at the water fund, hopefully being able to fund that next year. Clean the interior of the tower and the clear well. We do have some funds in what we call our water tower fund. Every year, the amount that cell tower company pays us for being up there, we transfer into a water tower fund. So we do have some funds then available to, for the interior tower cleaning. It needs to be done about every 5 years, and here we are at 5 years already. So, rebuilding and replacing 5 fire hydrants, and then water valve replacement program, which would be an annual expense, and water contributing to the Public Works Capital Fund.
So the fire hydrants are like 1,000 apiece then? Is that what you're figuring?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're figuring. Because some of them are repairs.
Rebuilds, oh.
Yeah. Because I think it costs more than $1,000 to buy a fire hydrant.
I would, yeah, it didn't seem like what.
So that's year one, and again, as it pertains to the budget then, if it's in year one of this, it'll show up in the initial draft of the budget. See how everything works out then with the costs. Like that campground project, big expense. You know, how does that work out with the available funds then? We'll start down the road that way. What other things would you look at possibly including then in that?
I think that's just getting started. That covers everybody's wish list pretty much, right?
It does, you know, that was based off of the departmental needs assessments.
Well, you know, and the year two there, that equipment bus is talking about the fire,
Yeah,
they got 75, are looking to set 75 aside for that, right?
yeah, if they could save a little bit of money, this would authorize the expense of it if it gets in the budget next year.
Mm-hmm.
It would authorize that expense.
75,000 would probably cover it.
Yeah, and redoing an old bus if I can, potentially.
This sewer camera now, will that run off our jetter, is that how that, or how does that work?
Any ideas on that one, Bill? It's standalone. It doesn't run off the jetter, but
Okay,
I hope that we'd get a pretty nice unit, and the nice units all run on tracks. And then it's remote control and down the pipes they go. You know, so, so it's remote control on the tracks, and then the camera can turn. So you can really see what you're looking at and looking up service line. Expensive though, you see it's $5,000.
They work pretty good too.
But if we could
I hope we can get
fund
something like that
problems,
for $5,000.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know, this day and age don't seem like much, you know, $5,000 don't seem like that.
I asked one of our locating guys, that's what he told me, $5,000
Okay, yeah,
for a budget price.
yeah.
Otherwise, we're guessing where to dig.
Yeah.
Well, sure, no, I think that's a good deal, I do.
So the years 2 through 5 are in here too, and gets pretty routine in a lot of years that are that far out. We're looking at saving money in routine ways and that type of stuff. One thing very notable in year 2 is that this does propose that we would basically finish up our underground replacement. And that's that project that Bill was talking about replacing all of the lines coming out of the substation. And that would end up being a pretty large project. But not for this upcoming year, it'd be proposed for year 2.
Bill, what percentage do we have done in town that's got that new underground? We're almost done.
Way over 90%.
Okay. We're getting close to the end of
You
this.
bet, yeah.
But they didn't know if they could get all this in one shot though, right?
This year,
I think, or if this,
That wouldn't be next year, wouldn't it?
a lot of it's 9 wires.
yeah.
Anything else then on capital improvements plan? Otherwise, we'll continue, as far as the budget goes, 2 things. Next Monday, special goal setting session. And while we're talking about that, we can look at this. This is what I'd like to be your homework. If you can have this done and back to me for sure by the end, well, not by the end of the week, by Wednesday would be great. If you can get this done and back to me, send it back, either drop it off or email it back to me, okay? And if I would have you go through and rate each one of those potential project ideas. And you'll see there's lots of things in there that we have discussed before and a lot of things that might be new. So if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. But then, so I want you to rate each one of those. But then on the bottom of the second page though, real interested in what your top 3 priorities would be to accomplish in the next 2 years. Including, if there's anything that's not on the list, make sure that you include that there as others. But top 3 priorities short term, and then top 3 priorities long term. And we'll ask you to explain and talk through those and really pitch those ideas and defend them during this goal setting session next week. See what we come out of as far as any new ideas or what the council would look for short and long-term priorities. Crystal clear as mud.
To do our city administrator report?
Yeah. We'll have an important decision coming up here pretty quick about the 408 Main Street building. We met with 3 folks who are interested in the building, and I met with them all again today to get them an update because we need their information to come to the city council so that the council can consider this at the council meeting on January 20th. And the date that's really pushing us on that is that the Catalyst grant applications are due at the end of January. So we need to select which project it is that you'd like to work with, and then have a few days available to get that grant application ready.
So how much time are we gonna have to review them? When are they coming into you?
I'll get them by the 15th. If I can get them by that Wednesday or so, I can try to get them out to you a little bit earlier. But it'll probably be that we'll have them come to the city council meeting and present their plans.
At the 20th?
Yeah.
That won't give much time for pre-application for Catalyst.
True, but it is just a pre-application, so that's the good part. We didn't need to have absolutely down to nitty-gritty, especially financial information. You don't need that for this portion so far. We'd have to have that for the full application, which goes like in April, so there's some time. As far as the dentist goes, both Healy and Wirtjes have looked at the building about demolishing, and we'd demolish the building and then swap buildings with the dentist. So they've looked at the building, are getting us the cost, we don't have the cost yet. And then same thing, Jeremy Wunschel is still working with his contractor on cost, and so is Jennifer Reeder.
So Bogue he's working with contractors to tear the building down. Does he have, an architecture thing for what he's gonna build?
Yeah, just to be able to use the same type of a concept. If he would tear down the TJ building, he'd have a new building over there. He'd take that same concept and be able to work off of that, expand it just a little bit. That's why he'd be real interested in the 408 Main building, is because the property's a little bit bigger there. So he can make his building a little bigger. Anyway, I guess just know that it's coming for the council meeting on the 20th. Again, P and Z appointment, we'll be looking for a P and Z member to replace Steve Shodden. Bart Thorson was the other applicant that we had previously, and it'll be in the newsletter. We'll run a notice in the resort that has a due date of January 31st. I do have a form, an application form, then that we want to get to where we use these for boards and commissions, so that people, you have all their contact information in there, and they're asking, answering a few questions about why it is they were interested in the board and what type of assets they bring to us.
So do you have handouts for them that you're giving them about what's entailed in that position?
Like a job description.
Oh, you know, the only thing that we really have is the code section, which is
There should be something for them, Scott.
we can get a little bulleted list about job responsibilities.
Clears up some gray areas then, so what is expected of them.
That's why I really want to be pretty clear with them that that it's time to do that comprehensive plan. That's a large undertaking, and people need to know what they're getting into then. So, and building inspector, an ad comes out in the paper then tomorrow, just a little help wanted ad to have a building inspector then based upon the current job duties. And so as far as any additional standards or any additional follow-up work for a certificate of occupancy or anything like that, it's not included in there now. It's just based off the job duties as is.
But they should be aware that might be.
It might change.
Yeah, they need to be aware.
And that's as far as a date, put just that the position's open until it's filled. So there is not a hard date on this one. If we can get somebody to come in and be interested.
But they need to know that
Consider
the
that.
position might become more time consuming, or however you want to bill it. And you're only looking locally, you're not looking out of town?
Not yet, it's just local right now.
So why are you opposed to looking for out of town?
Truthfully, getting somebody to come from out of town to come here and inspect a permit for $60 it's a tough sell. And if you really want to look at something like that, we sure can. But it probably becomes a much more comprehensive building permit process, because there are contractors out there who will do it, just that the cost goes up dramatically and likely becomes more complex.
When you talk Mike Fink into doing that.
That could be a pretty good one.
He'd be a good one.
I think that's a no.
Yeah, I think so too.
Look like
I
you
am
made-
interested in the planning and zoning though.
There's an out.
We thought you'd make a good building inspector.
$60 a time,
I
like.
don't have time right now yet.
I wouldn't need you
I
till
got
spring.
a project.
Omaha Sports Show. We're getting folks signed up for that. Sherry signed up, thanks, and I know May will be involved with that too.
I thought you were gonna be gone.
Not for that.
Sac County League meeting is, Sac County, it didn't say so in the packet, but Sac County League meeting is this Thursday.
Oh,
I-
I've seen
Yeah,
it.
I didn't say
I
that.
forgot to
noticed
put the
it.
date in there, but Sac County League is this Thursday, it's up at Cattleman's. Got an interesting program about, prison labor, the use of prison labor for public entities, but also for private businesses. So, that'll be what the program was on, and I was talking to Billy Bogue, when he was in last week, and Billy works out there, says Evapco is doing some of this. And Billy is gonna be the transport guy who transports some of their stuff to the prison then, and they will have them done there.
They don't bring the inmates here?
I
don't
think
think they
they're
do that
taking
anymore.
work to them,
Okay.
is kinda how I took it.
See, they used to do that here when we was in, and they did some work around town here, and then
Oh, yeah.
they had a little trouble, I think, not maybe here, but other places. And so they
We
stopped that
had
program.
some here too.
Yeah, I know we did, yeah. But I mean, we didn't have any trouble, but some places did, I think, and then they quit the program.
Yeah, Rita got the, when they redid the stadium or the baseball.
Ballpark.
Ballpark, they had it.
So what do they have them do over there? What, I mean,
Like they can, powder coat and do some plating and that type of stuff, I think is what they do.
have they used them before, is this new?
This is new, something new.
This is out of Newton, right? Or
This
that-
one, this one's out of Rockwell City.
Oh,
Rockwell's
Rockwell,
using the folks
okay.
out of Rockwell City. So, my next meeting opportunity though is Northwest Iowa League, and that's next Thursday, okay? Lakeview hosts that, and they'll be out of Docket. And the program for that night is on this, Homes for Iowa initiative, it's prison labor building homes. So, that is out of Newton, that they build the homes, they're stick-built homes that end up being transported here in two or three pieces and placed as a modular home. Just a very effective, cost-effective way to do that. You know, so, anyway, that'll be the program for next Thursday, and I hope that folks can plan to attend.
Bob, you're just in time.
Your timing's great.
Yeah. We're ready to hear from you next, Bob.
Okay, let me catch breath, nice. I made it in 2 hours and 1 minute, so.
Very good.
I guess just kind of bring everybody, we're up to date on where we are on the project. Since the last time we talked, when I was hiding out in a winter party, Christmas party. Grumman Hicks has been back working. They've actually been probably done more in the last couple, 3 weeks out there than they had for a while before. Right now, they're looking at probably having everything done that they could do except for 2 things, probably the 3rd or 4th week of January. The work that would be left would be at the existing treatment plant. They have to tie it and make the connection, and the way that's designed, they'll go right up to it, but they can't physically make the connection because then the flow all ends up going to the new lagoon. And then on the kind of the southeast connection, they have to get underneath the road and make the connection, basically the force main. That one really isn't critical because once they cut the flow over at the treatment plant, anything else all ends up going to the treatment plant and back to the lagoon. So once we're ready to go, we'll make that connection at the existing treatment plant. Then they can finish that east-southeast connection, and then that just diverts the flow north, but it won't affect when we put it in service. Right now, we're still looking at, you know, we may adjust that a little bit depending what the weather is over the next couple of months, but we're probably looking at trying to divert the flow sometime around the 1st week of March, which means that we'll probably then that will take the treatment plant offline, and we'll be filling the lagoon, and that's probably gonna take, depending on what the flows are, somewhere around 35 to 40 days. So if we cut the flow over sometime in the first week of March, we probably would fill the lagoon up sometime, maybe the second week to the middle of April. And during that period of time, there'll be no discharge. We'll just be filling the lagoon up. And what we're trying to do.
So let me understand this, Bob. So you're not diverting the flow yet then?
Yeah, okay. The lagoon holds about 35 days worth of flow.
Right.
So we've got these empty lagoon cells. And so once we cut the flow over at the treatment plant, we've got about a month's worth of time to fill those lagoon cells up. And only when they're full would we actually discharge. So in other words, we've got like a 35-day pond we have to fill up. Because whenever that new lagoon system is in operation, we've got about 35 days worth of flow sitting in the lagoon. So we got to fill that up, and once we fill it, then if we put a gallon in, a gallon comes out. But until we put that filled up, a gallon goes in and nothing comes out. And so we'll probably divert, I would anticipate that we'll discharge sometime in the middle of April. And at that point, we're in the disinfection season, so we'll have to fire up the UV system. The one place we're going to be close on is that we should be fine on the BOD and suspended solids. In other words, as we fill that up, we should be growing organisms, and we should be, if not meeting the permit limits, really close to the permit limits. The ammonia is going to be a little on the iffy side because we have to grow the nitrophine bacteria. The thought is that if we can wait till the first week of March, the water temperatures in the sewage will be above 40 degrees. And hopefully at that point, the air temperatures will be such that we don't cool it off a lot. And we'll start to grow some organisms and meet that limit. Now, whenever you start up a lagoon, there's always this transition of getting the bugs to grow. And so that's a normal part. The DNR understands that. It would be a lot better, I think, in consultation with them that we start up in March and April rather than, say, at the end of January where we wouldn't need treatment. So whether we start up in January or whatever we get in February and March wouldn't be very well treated. So we're kind of biding our way through the winter and then starting up in the spring. The one thing that has occurred now is that they're late enough now with their, what they call substantial completion, ready to where they cut over the flow, that there's now not enough period of time before we're going to cut the flow over to consider a supplemental contract. In other words, there's a window of time. It has to be 60 days in there where they can't do anything, and we don't have that 60-day window. So the supplemental contract concept that we talked about, it started last October, is no longer under consideration. And Grumman Hicks and merchants know that. And so at this point, we won't actually accept the project till everything's done, which will probably be based on a typical lagoon project. They'll cut the flow over, they still gotta come back and do all the seeding and all of that stuff. My guess is that we won't formally accept the project until, I'm gonna guess, July, maybe August timeframe. There won't be a lot going on, but we'll have to, all that little stuff has to finish up before we formally accept the project. The maintenance bond won't start till we accept the project. So this idea that we would accept the project in the supplemental contract in January or February, and then they wouldn't start the lagoon up till March or April, and then we'd have this gap, that no longer exists. We'll get the lagoon fully started up in March and April, and my guess is it's going to be July or August before we accept the project. So the maintenance bond period doesn't start till then. We still left open with them the council's desire to have the extended maintenance bond. How long that extended maintenance bond needs to be, I think, is going to depend a little bit on when we get around to accepting the project. Because if they don't get it done, they've got a few things left, and we're not accepting it until September or October, then that may be different than if we accept it, say, in June or thereabouts. So that's still an issue in play. The one thing they will ask...
So what do you think the chances are that they have an extra extension on the maintenance bond?
They seem to be willing to do that, Ken, still.
Okay, what kind of, you know, the meter's running right now, so I mean, when you say July 1st, that would be
The start of the two.
two-year,
Yeah,
two-year one, if that's the regular one. But if they wanted, we want an extension of the, maintenance bond,
That would be on the back end of that. Yeah.
So it'd be 2,000, okay, say we start 20, so 1 year would be 21, 22, and if we ask for a third one, it'd be the 23.
That's correct, yeah.
So there'd be the full calendar years that we would have that
Yeah.
maintenance bond, or that maintenance coverage. Well, okay, because I wanna make sure, you know, the meters, it's starting to run into some real dollars now, so I guess, I feel like we need to get the best. They haven't met their
No,
deadline, and to me, Bill, are they doing much work out there?
They were cleaning up today. He's talking about going and digging into the sewer plant a little bit.
yeah, what they wanna do now is that they wanna get closer to the treatment plant. When they started the sewer, they were a ways away from the connection. They're talking about bringing it back closer to that structure so that when they come back in March, they only have a little piece yet to go. They don't have as much pipe delay.
So with this money that we're collecting right now, are they gonna come back and try to say, well, it was winter time and we couldn't do product that they don't wanna get paid, or they shouldn't be charged for this? Is that something that could be coming down the pipe too, or not?
In other words, are they gonna negotiate this penalty?
More than likely, they'll raise that topic. In other words, if you look under the contract, you have the right to assess liquidated damages. But you also, there's a concept that you can't be punitive. In other words, the idea, what liquidated damages are intended to do is to cover difficult to quantify costs. In other words, what costs would the city incur as a result of their not completing? That might be additional staff time, that might be running the existing treatment plant versus the new treatment plant if there's a differential cost. And so what you do let me back up a little bit. I don't mean to play city attorney, so I'm not gonna do that.
I'm here to
But-
learn.
But the concept of what we're talking about is contract. And if somebody breaches a contract, the idea is that the party who was aggrieved by the breach should be made whole. Is that fair? But there's really, it's not like if we go into like, if we're not in contract, like if somebody's negligent and there's a lawsuit where you can be compensated for things that one might argue are beyond being made whole, or at least not monetarily. So in contract, the idea is to be made whole. So liquidated damages are intended to make the city whole for whatever they might incur. But if there's a period of time when they couldn't do anything and there's no arguable claim that the city's really incurring any costs, and yet you want to assess liquidated damages, they can come back and argue that you're being punitive, that you're going beyond being made whole, you're trying to extract a pound of flesh. That may be your emotional desire to do that, but you have to be careful of that.
So what is the point of having a daily numbered, dollar amount? What is the point?
It's the industry standard, and as long as you're not punitive, you can do that. But if you're saying, well, we really want to we want to really punish you for not getting out there and doing it, they can come back and argue that. I'm not saying they're going to prevail, but when you say, are they going to pay all the damages and not say anything about it, I can't tell you that they're not going to say something about it. I mean.
But does the fact that they could have used more personnel because they didn't want to pay overtime and they only wanted to do 40 hours a week and.
Those are all fair things that the city can say, look, you had, more than enough time. Contractors' side of it, they're gonna come back and say 2019 was an extremely wet year, and if it, you know, I don't know what it was here, I know in central Iowa it was the 5th wettest year on record. And so, and not only that, but they had a lot, we didn't have a lot of big rain, we had one big rain, we had lots of little rains. So, you know, they can come back and say, well, yeah, we could have, but the weather was bad, and we can't be the guarantor of the weather, and those are the kind of things that go
So
back.
who all then, who determines that?
Well, ultimately, the city council does, and they have the right to, you know, if they want to really take umbrage to that, they have the right to sue. But, you know, there's no third party, there's no arbitrator, we don't, you know, it's really the council's decision. And if you say you want to assess blank dollars and they want to take exception to that, their only remedy really is to bring a lawsuit, which has a cost. So, you know, if you're talking about, you know, not a huge amount of money, rarely does somebody bring a lawsuit.
But especially if they don't have any money, that could be a factor.
So, in
Well,
the
it
event,
depends on who wants to put the money up for them, yeah.
right, so, well, let's say something does go wrong, we gotta get some work done, line breaks, whatever might be the case. Who would then, would the maintenance bond company find somebody if Hicks wasn't around, or is the city responsible for finding somebody?
There's two, if Grundman Hicks is still in business, the bonding company is gonna tell Grundman Hicks to fix it.
Okay.
So, you know, even if they may have some financial problems now, if they stay in business, which I think is what Merchants Bonding Company is trying to do, is to keep them in business. They will be the ones, we'll notify both Grundman Hicks and Merchants, but Merchants will tell Grundman Hicks to go fix it. If that isn't the case, if let's say Grundman Hicks goes out of business, which on occasion will happen, we'll notify the bonding company. And then one of two courses of action could occur. One is that they could go find somebody to do it, which happens probably 65% of the time. The other is they're gonna say, no, why don't you go find somebody to fix it, and then under the bond, they're responsible to reimburse you for what those costs are. So, and that probably occurs 30, 35, maybe 40% of the time.
So in your opinion, what would be the most, how would you get a contractor? Would they be more subject to a city coming to them, or a bonding company? Because I'm telling you what, they come in here, they're not gonna come in here for just, you know, we might have $100,000 left, but they might want $100,000 just to come here and then start work, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So, which is the better way to go, to have the bond company handle it, or the city? That's,
Well, my preference is that if the bonding company will step up and take care of it, then that's the preference, because then the city doesn't have any financial exposure. You're not chasing them around to get the money back. Yeah, so I mean, so whenever, you know, whenever a bonding company will step up and do that, I mean, you don't want to get in their way of doing that. That's,
no,
yeah.
but then what do they typically do then, if that would be the case? Say, okay, you got till, I'm gonna throw a date out, June 30th, okay? Do you have an end so that gets done by that time, or how would that work, or would they decide to come?
Typically the way those are laid out is that we'll give you, if you want to do it, we'll give you, let's say, 60 days to do it. And at the end of the 60 days, then we as a city reserve the right to do it and seek reimbursement. So your leverage ultimately is to do it and try to get the money back from them. Their obligation under the bond, just so everybody understands, their financial exposure under the performance payment and maintenance bond is 100% of the project cost. So, in other words, the entire amount of the contract. So at this point, we're not at risk. It would take something extremely catastrophic before it would take the entire contract amount to fix it. Where the contract amount comes into play is if the contractor goes belly up very early in the project. Let's say they bid the project, got the contract, barely turned a piece of dirt, went out of business, and it turned out they badly underbid the project. So therefore, the bonding company is only exposed for whatever that contract was. So if it costs more to finish it than what the contract was, then in theory, the city could be at risk. That isn't the case here because we're talking about them, you know, Grumman Hicks has performed the contract, and what we're talking about is repair. So it's, you know, you'll get your money back, it's just a lot easier for them to do it and pay the contractor for us to chase them around getting the money back. I'm only aware of one circumstance in the last, probably on our projects in the last probably 20 years, where we've had trouble with the bonding company getting money back. And it's kind of it's one of the, what I'm gonna say, kind of the one-off bonding company. And in this particular case, the contractor was about 2/3 of the way through the project. There's no risk of them doing it. The contractor just, the bonding company just says, you know, go do it and sue us. And I'd say that's happened once to me in the last 20 years. I don't think that's, with this particular surety, that's not gonna happen. It depends upon who the surety is that underlies the bond, and who the bonding company is. Merchants, bonding company, mutual, won't let that happen. I can tell you, they're viewed as kind of the Cadillac in Iowa of bonding companies, and so they don't want their reputation tarnished. And so they'll step up, much like they did here, to get the cash flow problem solved. You know, the company I'm referring to it's a company out of Wisconsin. There's they have a, you know, kind of, I won't call them fly-by-night bonding company, but not too far away from that. The thing is, we don't have control as long as they're able to get a bond in Iowa, you know, pretty much as the city has to take it. But in this particular case, both the surety and the bonding company, I think, will, you know, they're not gonna let they're not gonna get their reputation tarnished. So I think you're probably in pretty good shape. Merchants Bonding Company Mutual, by and large, if it's not you know, they tend to want to resolve the issues, not fight the issues. They don't want to, you know, so they typically are pretty easy to deal with.
So if the council would decide what do you think the odds are of getting a third year?
Well, I think we've had agreement in principle with Mike Christensen to provide that. So I don't know at this point it's going to be a big pushback. I think it's going to play a little bit upon, you know, if you're going to say we're going to assess every dollar liquidated damages and we want an extended maintenance bond, that's going to be an issue. If you can say there's horse trading in there, that's probably, there's a resolution. So, I mean, I think what we've told them is the council wants an extension of the maintenance bond, but we've also haven't been able to tell them that there's any, you know, forbearance or forgiveness of liquidated damages, because the council's never really said that. So when you're kind of say, okay, give us this, but we can't tell you that we're going to give you anything back in return, that's kind of where we are right now. But in principle, Mike Christensen has indicated that he didn't really have a problem.
So would you be brokering the deal then if we would decide to go with that?
Well, that would probably, somebody would have to do that, yeah.
So Bob, we thought we'd be done with our sewer plant now. We're gonna have to use it this winter. What if something major goes wrong? Who's stuck repairing it? I mean,
At this point, we would not repair it. What we would simply do is, you know, if Grumman Hicks gets to the point where all they have left to do is to make the connection, at that point, we would simply make the connection and put it online. I mean, we're not putting it online because we'll have better effluent quality in the spring, but if we have to put it online, we can put it online. So, you know, at this point, it wouldn't make sense to go spend, you know, a big amount of money to fix something that breaks at the treatment plant. I mean, we're, what, 8 weeks away from it, so we hope that nothing breaks. But, you know, once they get to the point where they can cut it over, you know, if we have to cut it over, we'll cut it over. So the one thing a little bit we will see probably is that under Iowa law, once they get to about 97.5% complete with the project, they're entitled to request what's called early release of retainage. We hold 5% of the contract. So every time we pay an estimate, we pay 95%, we hold 5%. And right now, you're holding roughly just under $300,000 in retainage. So at some point, when they get less than about $150,000 left to go on the project, which they're not there yet, but they're getting close. In fact, they're probably, at the end of the next payment estimate, they probably will be there. At that point, they can request retainage paid to twice the value of the work remaining to be completed. So when they get down to $150,000 left of work to complete, you can hold $300,000 of the retainage. If you're holding more than that, then they're entitled to go through the procedure and have that paid. So when they get it to $100,000, that goes $200,000, $50,000 because $100,000. So as we go through the process of not accepting the projects, we're not gonna accept the project till it's all done, is that one would expect, and I think they're gonna do it, is that as we get closer and closer, that they'll request that early release of retainage. So if we get down to where there's $2,000 worth of work remaining to be completed, the Iowa legislature changed the law a few years ago where you pretty much have no choice. You can't hold $300,000 for $2,000 of work remaining. So
Who makes the determination of how much is left to do? You say 100,000, I say 50,000, or how's that determined?
well, the first thing you do is when they started the project, if you ever looked at the payment estimate, they have what's called a schedule of values. So that kind of gives you an idea of what each thing is. So the first thing you do is look through what's not done. What's that value? And then you have the right to make some adjustments to that. The city can propose what they believe is a reasonable value. And as long as it's reasonable, I think you're supported behind that. So if they've got, if they've got $20,000 left and the city says, no, it's $250,000, in theory, their remedy again is to litigate it. I've never had one get to that. Most of the time, we reach an agreement on what it is. Tend to favor a little bit on holding more back than the other way around, but we typically will go off their schedule of values. So, and see what's that, and what we typically would do is we'll put that in writing and say to everybody, okay, Scott, this is what we think the value of work remaining to be completed is. We'll share that with government kicks and with merchants, and if they don't like it, they can squawk. And we'll see if we can.
But you guys always have kind of an overview of all of that, right?
So that's kind of where we are project-wise, we're to the point. We did receive today, and it's obviously not on the agenda because it just came in this afternoon, we did receive payment estimate number 18. This would be for work through December, just to give you a preview of what will be on your next agenda. We haven't even reviewed it yet, so it might change a little bit, but they're requesting payment of $32,082.35. So that's what they're requesting for December. If you look at that, the contract amount is $5.966 million with the change order, and if just looking at this, they're now saying they're at 5,893, which means they're, according to their calculations, $75,000 worth of work remain to be completed. So at that point, they'll have hit that to the point where an early release of retainage. I don't know that, we probably won't see one for this estimate, but my guess is the one you'll see after this will probably have an early release of retainage in it.
So much, when's our first payment due then?
On our bond,
Yeah,
we've been paying.
oh, I see.
So we are paying interest only right now.
Right.
I see.
But in June, we make first principal payment.
Okay.
And we are receiving adequate revenue to make that payment, so we're doing okay.
Just a little bit of how that works. When we start the project, we tell them when we think it's going to be complete, and the first principal payment is due on June 1, not more than 12 months after they complete the project. So they would have to not be complete for the project until sometime in July before that would trigger. And at this point, it's locked in. So we're going to have the plant online this spring. So whether they got it done in October, November, or April or May, it still would be June 1 of 2020, because that's kind of their schedule. Yeah. So it isn't gonna affect anything. In your case, it's close. I did a project with the city up by Marshalltown a few years ago where they could never get around to, they had one contract left to go. This wasn't a contractor problem, this was a city problem. They couldn't get around to awarding getting ready to decide what they wanted to do to finish off the project, and so they could never get the contract awarded. They actually paid off 7 of the 20 years of the bonds before they finished the project. I don't recommend that, but that's the worst I've ever had, is 7 years into the payment schedule, so. So, things are progressing. You know, it'd obviously be nice if they had been done. But I think they understand they need to get done. I think, as I indicated in my letter, according to both, I confirmed it with Jay Farley at Merchants as well as Mike Christensen. As I understand it, everybody, including the property owners, are scheduled to be paid by, I think it's a week from tomorrow, is the last I heard.
So are all the property owners, everything's okay with them?
Well, I don't know that they've been paid, but I think they were gonna be paid. I'm sure we'll have to wait till spring to see if they've got any other complaints.
They all had submitted
Right.
their additional damages for this year, they've all been submitted, okay? Like for Larry, we just had V&K come reshoot the disturbed areas.
Okay.
And that came back to us, I think, last week or so. And there is some contention on that about whether some additional area should still be included. But other than that, they've been reshot. You know, we had the issues with Nora Schultz, that's all attended to. Any of the additional easement with Steve Watts, that's all been attended to. Still to work with Judy Wilson, and what the additional easement would be there. And they've
So
made
we
some.
haven't gotten that?
That's still pending. And then it's also still pending with Larry. Of course, they've just finished work in Judy's property here, boy, not 2 weeks ago, so.
So we won't know, you know, what the parameters of that are until,
My guess it'll be a few weeks before we get all of those issues resolved.
And so who's responsible for that? The Texas, that's their problem?
Merchants Bonding Company Mutual, okay. In other words, there's a couple of different things. The payment bond says they'll pay all of the legitimate costs and claims against the project incurred by the contractor, pay all the bills and everything. The suppliers and subcontractors can file a claim under 573 against the project. Property owners and others, third parties, can't file a claim. They can still request the contractor that they be paid. They just can't file a 573 claim. In discussions with Merchants Bonding Company Mutual, they're not disputing that all of those non-573 claims, which are basically the property owners, are valid, assuming they get ratified. In other words, they get, make sure they're legitimate, but assuming they are, they're not arguing that they wouldn't pay them even though there would be no 573 claim.
so potentially they, just so the city's not responsible
That's
for
correct.
paying them,
That's
is
correct.
what I'm.
Yeah, right now, Merchants
I have a
Bonding
question.
Company and Grumman Hicks said they're aware, they understand that there are property owner damage claims out there, and they will honor those claims.
Okay,
So,
so like Larry, Judy,
all of
all
those,
those, okay.
But just understanding that this is kind of a two-pronged deal too, because anything that's happening now during construction, and they've exceeded their easement and whatnot during construction time, Grumman Hicks, it has indicated they're paying for all that stuff.
Okay.
We have future year crop damages, and that would all fall back to the city on the enhanced area.
So if there's,
and we'll try to
More
resolve
than 3
those as
years
a
or
part
whatever.
of future
Yes,
year
3
crop damages for encroachments. We should try to resolve those to the best that we can before we close out the project, so we're not chasing those around. If we want to seek those back from the contractor, it's best to see if we can monetize those before we close out the contract.
Okay.
Well, there's
So we
been
haven't
there's
discussed
been
that.
some calls about the way that's all been handled.
Yeah, those things are never very graceful, but
No. So I think we need to have a discussion about how that was handled, how I'd like to see some paperwork on it.
Yeah, I agree.
And stuff.
Well, I'll work with Scott and we'll see if we can put together a summary of all of that so that everybody's aware of. We can get, it probably wouldn't hurt to get that all down on paper anyway for everybody, so I'll work with Scott on that too. Before your next council meeting, see if we can get that in writing. And everybody say, yes, this is what's resolved, this is yet to be resolved. These are questions that are still outstanding, so.
Very good.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
You guys aren't done, or going to be done on my property probably until spring sometime. So how's that gonna progress forward with the rest of the problems you got up there?
In what sense?
Well, you got, 2 manholes that aren't covered yet because you're still waiting to get them cambered, I guess, and cleaned out.
My understanding, they were supposed to have those done before spring.
You're not gonna be able to move the dirt on stuff on top of them when it's froze.
Yeah, I know, there may be some areas we can't get resolved before spring, so
But you guys are still willing to get that resolved whenever it happens then?
as quickly as we can, yeah.
Okay.
So when does they get paid for 3 years of crop damage? When does that start, when they say that everything's final? Or does it start from the day?
It's gonna start for crop year 21, so it's 21, 22,
Okay.
23.
Okay, yeah, that's
Excuse me, 20, crop year 20.
Yeah.
20.
Is that right?
20, 21.
20, 21, 22.
And if there's areas that Larry was supposed to be able to farm this year, that he can't farm this year, then you end up with another year of complete damages, and then the crop damage thing pushes forward, so it adds one more.
So is that where we're gonna be? Are we going to be,
There may be some areas that, they don't have totally ready for him to be back in by the spring.
and do we have signed contracts?
Yeah, we have signed easements for everything. Okay, so we have signed easements for everything that mentions the 3 years subsequent crop damage. Okay?
And so the
We're-
property owners all signed those.
Yep, for
And
the
then-
initial project.
Right, and then the problem was the easement went over,
Expanded, yep.
and so that, they haven't been paid for.
Yeah, true, I don't
They've
think
not been
they've,
paid, that's part of what yet to
That's
be
part of
paid.
what the merchants is gonna
Right.
pay.
yeah.
And then the council's done the 3-year, which could be 21, 22, and 23.
It had pushed it out an additional year, that's right.
I think that there's 3 components of the property. One is what the city agreed to originally,
Yep.
which would be through the 19 crop season, and then crop damages for 20, 21, and 22. There's an additional area outside of the easement where the contractor encroached, where probably the basis of compensation is similar to what the city's original basis was. And they're done and they can crop that in 20, but so there would be the same basis of payment as there was under the city's agreement. And then there's also an area where they aren't gonna finish by spring of 20, so Larry can't plant this spring. And that would be another area that we'll make the argument, that's the contractor's responsibility because they didn't get done in time. So that will add, it won't add another year of crop damages, it'll add crop loss for that year.
But the crop damages were based on the initial easement.
That's true, but the city has then, voluntarily said, we will pay subsequent crop damages for future years off of the expanded easement area, after the redefined easement area, and pushed it out that additional year. Yeah, so that's the little give and take the.
So do we have copies of all those?
Of all the original ones, and Watts's is done, and there's no change from Nora's, and the one that's pending would be Wilson's.
And then that, Vicki, that would also come in under the rubric of the liquidated damages, that would be part of the city's argument that we need those liquidated damages as compensation for the overrun in time, which caused us to pay an additional year for an expansion of the easement areas.
Okay.
So that falls into that
That will help.
Yeah,
rubric there.
I might disagree a little bit from that.
Okay.
Typically, we don't lump those into liquidated damages. We'll say those are direct damages, and those would be apart and above and beyond liquidated damages.
I understand that, but it's gonna go into our liquidated damages
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah. But we're gonna make the argument that that's a direct obligation, and then
That's great, I hope that works first.
generally, that one works better, because that's not an ill-defined cost to the city. That's a contractor's either failure to complete or failure to stay within the easement, so.
But because I'm beginning to go brain dead here, that is, don't laugh.
If I'm going, you can tell me I'm okay, but nobody else.
That is not part of the, is that merchant's responsibility? Or is that gonna be Grumman Hicks?
Well, okay, ultimately, in other words, Grumman Hicks is the contractor, so they're responsible to the extent that they're still in business. And so if they fail to do so, then we go back to merchants and say, okay, you're a principal on the bond, Grumman Hicks failed to perform, so under the performance and payment bond, you're obligated to make the payment. So and right now, because they're together, what an argument you make to one, you make to the other, because you're making your payments to merchants. So what we're doing is anything related to payment, we send to both of them. Let them figure out, because right now merchants is paying the bills. So typically we go to Grumman Hicks, and then if Grumman Hicks doesn't pay, then we eventually go to merchants. Now we're going to both of them because merchants is paying the bills, so actually it goes a little quicker.
Bob, thank you. Anybody have more questions?
No, I'm totally confused, no. No, it's very, I mean, I understand what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of see a path forward, but there's gonna be things that we'll have to kind of react to.
The path's still cloudy.
Yeah, we'll have to react to certain things as they occur over the next several months, so. We'll walk our way through that, so.
Thanks for your time, Bob.
Appreciate you driving down.
Thank you. No problem.
Thanks, Bob.
We'll see you in a while.
I'm sure I'll be back.
Whitey's got an extra bedroom.
Thank you for the forbearance of letting me get on late tonight, so.
We have a motel right outside of town.
Yeah.
Other than I have a 6 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning, so.
You ain't gonna get much rest.
Yeah, with sleep.
2 hours, maybe 11. Who needs more than 2 hours of sleep?
My first meeting this morning was at 6:30, so.
Sure.
Another one of those days.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go
Okay.
into closed session now?
Yep. We need a motion to go into closed session, so second,
I'll second it.
roll call.
Aye. Volkman. Reese.
Yes.
Muller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.